As with his prior Black Coal, thin-iced Chinese director Diao Yinan's The Wild Goose Lake has a coiled intensity that amplifies its romantic fatalism. Dao's neo-noir follows a gangster named Zhou Zhenong, who, after killing a cop in a criminal enterprise gone awry, partners with a bathing beauty prostitute named Lu Ai, Gui Lun Mei, in order to reunite with his estranged wife Yang Shujin, Wang Qian, all so she might collect the reward on his head. Rife with betrayals, manhunts and shootouts, the author's narrative is constantly taking sharp, unexpected turns, and the same is true of his breathtaking direction, which reveals unseen figures, and twists via precise camera work and expressionistic flourishes that are married to a realistic depiction of rain-soaked Wuhan and its lawless lakeside communities. Hunted by police Captain Liao Fan, Dao's protagonists are engaged in a deadly game that's played in silence because they all inherently know the rules, and the sense of purpose is echoed by the film itself, which orchestrates its underworld conflicts with bracing precision. Plus, it boasts 2020's most gruesomely inventive use of an umbrella. Historical changes often have humble beginnings, as was the case with the American Disabilities Act (ADA), whose origin is Camp Jeanne, a 1970s summer getaway for disabled men and women in New York's Catskill Mountains. James Lebrecht and Nicole Newnham's documentary is the story of that quietly revolutionary locale, where disrespected and marginalized handicapped kids were finally given an opportunity to simply be themselves, free from the judgment of those not like them. What it instilled in them was a sense of self-worth, as well as indignation at the lesser-than treatment they received from society. Led by the heroic Judy Heumann and many of her fellow Jeanne alums, a civil rights movement was born, resulting in the famous San Francisco sit-in to compel U.S. Secretary of Health, Education and Wellness Joseph Califano to sign Section 504 of 1973's Rehabilitation Act, and later, the ADA. Intermingling copious footage of Camp Jeanne and the movement it produced with heartfelt interviews with some of its tale's prime players, Crip Camp is a moving example of people fighting tooth and nail for the equality and respect they deserve, and, in the process, transforming the world. Oz Perkins is a horror lyricist fixated on grief and female agency, and both factor heavily into his atmospheric reimagining of the classic fairy tale. In a countryside beset by an unknown plague, teenage Gretel, its Sophia Lillis, refuses to work as an old creepy man's housekeeper, and is thus thrown out by her mother, forced to take her young brother Hansel, Sam Leakey, on a journey through the dark woods to a convent she has no interest in joining. Beset by hunger, the two come upon the home of a witch, Alice Cridge, whose feasts are as mouth-watering as her magic lessons for Gretel are simultaneously empowering and unnerving. Perkins sticks relatively closely to his source material's narrative while nonetheless reshaping it into a story about feminine power and autonomy, and the potential cost of acquiring both. Drenched in ageless, evil imagery, full of triangular pagan symbols, pointy-hatted silhouettes, and nocturnal mist, and boasting a trippiness that becomes hilariously literal at one point, Gretel and Hansel casts a spell that feels at once ancient and new. The true story of a mother's search for her missing child, Netflix's Lost Girls is a clear-eyed and moving exposé about the many ways in which troubled young women are let down by parents, police and society at large. Using Robert Kolker's book as her source, director Liz Garbus recounts Mari Gilbert's, Amy Ryan, efforts to find her oldest daughter Shannon, a prostitute, after she vanished following a house call in a gated Long Island community. At every turn, what Mari discovers is a lack of urgency about, if not outright indifference to, her daughter's disappearance, even after other bodies are found in the very same area. Ryan's powerhouse performance as the fiercely determined Mari is the nucleus of this dispiritingly bleak tale, in which there are few concrete answers to be found, but plenty of blame to pass around. That Garbus doesn't let Mari off the hook for her own mistakes, while nonetheless casting a reproachful gaze at the individual and systemic failings that allow such crimes to occur, and go unsolved, only strengthens her cinematic case for compassion and togetherness as the bulwark against tragedy.
Handsome, clever and rich, is how Emma's tagline describes its matchmaking heroine, Anya Taylor-Joy, but it's also an apt summation of director Autumn de Wilde's Jane Austen adaptation, which is energized by meticulous style, spirited wit and passionate emotions. Hewing closely to its source material, the film charts Emma Woodhouse's efforts to find a suitor for her doting companion Harriet Smith, Mia Goth, while struggling with her own blossoming feelings for her sister's brother-in-law, George Knightley, Johnny Flynn. Round and round the romantic entanglements go, not only for these three characters but a host of others that De Wilde and screenwriter Eleanor Catton faithfully delineate in clean, bright brushstrokes. Its studied imagery suggesting a daintier variation on Wes Anderson's trademark visuals, Emma boasts an aesthetic confidence that's matched by its performers. At the head of that impressive pack, which also includes Bill Nighy, is Taylor-Joy, whose Emma exudes just the right amount of playful cockiness and ambition, qualities ultimately undercut by her realization that no amount of manipulations can change what the heart wants.